Should we move on to the hurling?
Yeah, we will. I before we even go, like, obviously Ballyhale won their ninth All Ireland. It's an unbelievable achievement for them. But like the spectacle you mentioned there, the spectacle was definitely hurt by the pitch. There's no point in saying any different. And we flagged it up in advance. The pitch was not in good shape last Saturday or last Sunday for the intermediate junior double in hurling and football, and it was in worse shape. And I know Pat Hoban took a bit of a broadside at the pitch after. You might go through it there. Like it isn't good enough really for the biggest club day of the year, where you have the best hurlers in the country unable to go down with one hand to pick a ball. I've never seen as many roll lifts in a game in Croke Park in my life. And lads realised quickly, they went down with the jab lift and it just wasn't coming up and had to roll lift. I've never seen that many roll lifts in a big game.
Yeah, and like at times you're like, why are you roll lifting the ball? But there's obviously a good reason for it. These teams didn't get this far just, by going with the bad habits of
will
the
you
roll
get your arse in and roll? Get your arse in and roll it, will you?
And so Pat Hoban said afterwards, normally when you walk out here, you're in awe of the place. These guys, it's our fourth game in a row here. We've been very, very lucky, but it's definitely the worst condition we've seen it in. I know nothing about keeping pitches, but they never seem to leave the grass grow here for an All-Ireland final. If that was a pitch, you wouldn't train it. Garth Brooks, whatever he did, I think they laid a new pitch after it. Normally that pitch is like a carpet, you're bouncing on it. Whereas there, the lads were even saying to fall on it. It's as hard as a rock. It's disappointing, I'd say, and tell you it looks like guys are fumbling and making small mistakes, but it's like trying to rise the ball on tarmac. Unfortunately, it is in poor nick for our premier pitch. Well, look, obviously it probably just hasn't had a chance to grow properly, and maybe there just hasn't been enough sunlight. Obviously, there's been daylight, but maybe there just hasn't been enough of a chance for it to grow properly since what happened with the Garth Brooks concerts. And the other thing is that there's been so many unnecessary games played there. I mean, why have Ballyhale played 4 games in a row there? Why have Kilmacud Crokes played maybe 8 of their last 10 games? That's not an exact figure, but give or take, outside of Dublin in that venue. There's no need for it at all. Also, these games are massively lost in Croke Park. I mean, yesterday, like, you don't ever want to deny club players the chance to play an All-Ireland final in Croke Park, but it's not a suitable venue even for these games. It probably would be better off in a place like Thurles, for example. Think of how magic the minor All-Ireland final was last year because it was in Nolan Park, or other finals in other venues. The likes of, wasn't it Ballinderry played their All-Ireland final in 2002 in Thurles because of the redevelopment of Croke Park. We had our replay in 2018 in Portlaoise, and, that added to the memory as far as I'm concerned. So there's part of me that thinks maybe Croke Park is no longer suitable, but the other part is like, yeah, it's the biggest game of all time for a club player, so it should be at Croke Park. So I'm just a small bit torn on that one.
Yeah, I've no issue whatsoever with the All-Ireland final being played in Croke Park. I just have an issue with semi-finals, provincial semi-finals. Like, there's a load of traffic on the pitch that is kind of unnecessary, really. And as you say, you're putting what maybe would have been 6,000 or 7,000 for some of those attendances into a big, huge stadium like Croke Park. There's probably no need for it. I think there was the guts of about 23 there yesterday, and there was a good atmosphere. There's something about a club final where you always hear those foghorns. I don't know, and particularly when
it's annoying.
But there's plenty of noise at least. But I have no issue with the All-Ireland finals being played there. I think all players in particular would want to be playing there. And I think fans love going up. But I just think it was unnecessary for a lot of the other games. And I think they suffered the effects of that yesterday. They suffered the effects of it the previous Sunday and the previous Saturday as well, when conditions should have absolutely been prime for what is the biggest club day of the year. And just a little brief aside as well. I was in Kinnegad yesterday, as I was saying, and Eddie Gibbons, Dara Purcell and Fergal Whiteley were all playing for Dublin in a meaningless dead rubber Walsh Cup game, while their club, Kilmacud Crokes, were playing in an All-Ireland club final, some 70 or 80 kilometres away in Croke Park. And I just think it's an absolute crying shame that, fixtures couldn't be scheduled to allow. I put you this way, Henry Shefflin would have gone bonkers if Galway were playing at 2:00 yesterday while Ballyhale were playing in the All-Ireland club final. Like, he would have had it, and he's probably, maybe TJ is kind of up there with him now, but he's one of the greatest players in the history of their club. One of two of the best players. Imagine not being able to go to the game because you're involved with somebody else. Like, I don't see why that game couldn't be played on Saturday, why he couldn't have even been played at, 12:30 yesterday or 12:00 yesterday. And I'm not just talking about those 3 lads. Like, everybody wants to see the club finals. Everybody that's a GA player And you're taking a lot of Dublin fans that want to see the hurling. They're going to go out and support their county. Same with Westmeath. Same with the Offaly Laois game that was on yesterday. Same with Tip and same with Cork. And a lot of those lads, the minute you're chatting them after the game, the first thing, if they know you, they'd be like, who won the club final? Do you know what I mean? I just think it's a mad scenario. It never happened on St. Patrick's Day because nothing else was on. And it shouldn't happen now either. I think yesterday should have been a club day and a club day alone.
Yeah, and look, as I've said to you before, I think this month should just be for college competitions. Pretty soon, it'll be December All-Ireland Club Finals, so nothing, you would imagine nothing will be up against it. But if my memory serves me correctly, last year, we had Dara Purcell with the UCD Freshers, and I'm pretty sure he was even training with the football team as they were on their All-Ireland run last year, getting all the way to the final. So you can imagine then the fact that he would be very close and have trained with an awful lot of these lads, and maybe under different circumstances would have also been togging yesterday. Like, that's a very difficult one for the likes of him and obviously the other lads as well would no doubt like to be there.
There was a tongue-in-cheek comment, Shane, that a lot of the boys wouldn't even know each other within the club, hinting at how big the club is or whatever. But they're all training in the same places. They're all back in the clubhouse after. Like, I'll put it this way. The three lads I mentioned that were playing for Dublin would have been back in, the clubhouse in their grounds after the Leinster final. The hurlers lost, obviously, but went down valiantly. The footballers won. They would have been celebrating together. They would have been commiserating together. And, like, I just think it's a shame that, they wouldn't be able to go and support their own club and their own kind of club mates in what is, one of the biggest days in the club's history. And Cassius King is right, because obviously there's loads of Dunleigh lads involved, several of them involved with the Antrim squad. Those lads, if their game had been played yesterday, they would have been going mad, and rightfully so. But that game was played Saturday. Just wondering why. I think every game that was played over the weekend should have been played on Saturday.
Yeah, who stood out for you in the Club All-Ireland hurling final? Like, I would say, obviously, with 1-5, Owen Cody's top of the list. But that wrecking ball, Colin Fennelly in the first half, he had his fingerprints all over a few of those different goal chances. I thought he was really, really good as well.
I'm banging the same beat again and again. But Conal Cunning was one of Dunleigh's most dangerous men, and he just didn't get a sniff off Joey Holden. Again, like, how many times has he done this in the last 10 years since he broke onto the scene, where he just quietens the lad? And it'd be interesting to chat to Joe when he's on the show in a couple of minutes. Joe had a couple of battles with him, obviously, in the 15 Leinster final, the 15 All-Ireland final as well. But he's just unspectacular, but just does his job brilliantly every time. And I thought he was going to get the nosebleed near the end. He went up, and I thought he was going to try and shoot for a point. But typical of him, and how kind of understated and much of a team player he is, he was up there and he could have taken a shot. All he wanted to do was give a pass. He had no interest in the lights. He had no interest in scoring in Croke Park.
Are you calling him windy?
No, I'm not calling him windy. I'm calling him just, he probably maybe not knows his limitations, but he just wouldn't see himself like that. He just give the ball to the next best man. And that could be his last game of hurling at senior level, realistically. The idea is to head off for 2 to 3 years. That was the initial plan. And I'd imagine now, obviously he had the really sad bereavement of his dad, and he came back for that. And look at what spiraled after that. And I'm sure his dad would have been immensely proud of him yesterday. And as well as that, I know Owen Cody referenced Paul Shefflin, and the last game that Paul Shefflin had seen Ballyhale play before he suddenly passed away was that club final. There would have been so many lads that say smiling down on all those Ballyhale lads yesterday. And just as we said in the previous show, we left out one fella, but Colin Fennelly, TJ, Owen Reid and Mark Aylward now have 6 All-Ireland club medals. Like 6 All-Ireland club medals. 2 more than any other club outside of the Shamrocks. Like, it's unbelievable, really.
Yeah, I think it was 5 shots that Dunloy dropped short. Sometimes lads take forcing shots that were absolutely not on. Other times maybe miss hits. A couple of times lads were blocked down. They'll definitely be pining over some of those missed chances. I saw Gregory O'Kane was tweeting late last night about his, how proud he was of the boys, and this isn't the end of the journey. I think that was generally sort of the tone of it, and like they were really excellent because they were written off across the board. I don't think we wrote them off. Like, we had the tactics board up the other day. We were looking at where we thought they might get some wins, where they could hurt Shamrocks, but we both did feel that ultimately that would be the way that it would go back to Kilkenny. 3 titles in 4 years, which only Portumna have done in recent times as well. So that's very impressive from the club. Like 6 goal chances to Ballyhale, just 1 for Dunloy, and that was early in the game, and it was a great finish from Ronan Malloy. It was actually a brilliant move. Sean Elliott was quite good. I think one or two chances just didn't quite happen for him. Just that you talk about defenders coming up when Oran Quinn sold it up during was it the first half or the second half? I can't remember which. Yeah, and eventually popped it over the bar. That was a very nice score. Paul Shields, just like when he came on the semi-final, I thought he was brilliant in this game. Keelan Malloy was quite good. Probably hoped to get on a little bit more ball, but they were good. But geez, Shamrocks, just like Crokes in the other game, last 4 scores, you know, they were obviously just a little bit ahead. But they created more chances, 43 chances to 29 in terms of creation. That kind of tells you, like, was there part of you thinking that the effort that Dunloy had put in, the brilliant effort they'd put in, that ultimately in the last few minutes, just, I don't know, maybe they just ran out of juice just a small bit?
Did look like it, and it was just a barrage of Ballyhale scores at the end. There was a period in the second half, about 6 or 7 minutes, where there was just a couple of chances that to me just sucked all the oxygen out of Dunloy. Remember, Keelan Malloy was going through. He was kind of going down the left flank, down the Hogan stand side, and it was, for a split second, there was a man in the middle, and it was a hand pass across, and it was a potential goal chance.
Yeah.
I think he was fouled, but he missed the runner. I think that was a good goal chance. Conal Cunning had a free in the 49-minute, drop short. Nigel Elliott dropped a shot short in the 50th minute. And like, to me, I know you mentioned Keelan Malloy was good, Cunning was okay, but like Ronan Malloy, if you'd said beforehand that Ronan Malloy would probably be their best forward when you're thinking of Nigel Elliott, Sean Elliott, Keelan Malloy, Conal Cunning, that would have been a surprise. And a lot of the guys that we probably flagged up before the game, they definitely didn't hit the heights they did in the semi-final anyway.
Yeah, and like even Darren Mullen coming on late on, what an impact he had. And they did this all without having Adrian Mullen. And Brian Cody was also good when he came off the bench. But